All right, cast your mind like 10 years ago, okay? MCU is like absolutely popping off, and every single other blockbuster entity out there wants to get in on the cinematic universe goodness. You have the Dark Universe, you have the Monster Universe, which we still kind of have. Obviously, DC is, yeah. Anyway, the point is that everyone was trying to get in on that MCU goodness. And arguably, the top competitor in the connected cinematic universe world has been the Fast franchise, Fast and the Furious. Now, for me personally, it's not really my thing. I've seen maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 of these things. But at this point, it's this massive, large franchise that everybody is familiar with. They've had spinoffs. They've interconnected. It's got lore that is built upon itself. Vin Diesel has described it as Tolkien-esque. So, and I'm sure, maybe, I don't know. I've never seen it. Like I said, it's not my thing. But here's my thing. Okay, like let's say you got the MCU, you've got the Fast franchise. I would argue that there is a cinematic universe that for the last decade could have been one of the major competitors with this kind of large-scale cinematic universe play. The Downton Cinematic Universe. No, hang on. Don't turn it off. Downton Abbey is incredible, all right? Downton Abbey totally slaps. And if you don't check this series out, if you haven't watched this before, then you need to give it a try. 3 episodes. That's all I ask. Watch the first 3 episodes. By the end of the first 3 episodes, if you're not totally like engrossed in this series, then you just don't even like television. That's just the rule. But legit, okay, Downton Abbey was fantastic at world building. Throughout the course of this 6-season series, little comments are made here and there about various characters or various events happening from the past, happening from yesterday, whatever it may have been. And a lot of phone calls are made, sometimes with characters whose names get dropped in like season 1, but then they don't show up until season 3. And then they become like your favorite characters. And when you go back and rewatch the series, you're like, oh my goodness, I forgot that this person was even referenced back then. On top of that, because this is a family and because there's so much family drama, there's so many layers of tension that have existed throughout the course of the years leading up to what we get in season 1. I'm telling you, the Downton Abbey universe is so very well thought out. And why I argue that it could have been a cinematic universe, or perhaps even should be a cinematic universe, is because unlike the failures of, say, like the Sony Spider-Verse, where they just kind of slap you in the face constantly with like, see, we're going to make this into a connected movie, Or like, what was that one with like the moon that, the moon's going to crash into the earth and now we've got a moon cinematic universe. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to like push this idea of like franchise. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants franchise like smacked in their faces. What we want is things of interest to be built upon. And that is where I feel like Downton Abbey is poised better than most to be able to do exactly that. Now, arguably, this is like, setting up like prequels and multiple series that focus on various characters. I mean, you could have like the Carson series that focuses on his early days when he was in show business, which is very counter to who we know in the Downton Abbey series. Based on everything we know about him, there was this love triangle between him and his partner and this girl, and then the partner and the girl, they run off together. And if you do the math based on where all this stuff is, he's like an older teen, I'm guessing, because he comes to Downton Abbey in his youth to become, I guess, a footman. That had to have been in the Dowager's day when like she was essentially ruling Downton Abbey. In fact, one of the biggest mystery characters of all of Downton Abbey is Robert's dad, who is constantly referenced here and there, but we don't know anything about him whatsoever. Which is wild because we know so much else. In fact, an entire Downton Abbey prequel series would be fantastic. Specifically focusing around the courtship of Robert and Cora. So we know that Robert and Cora didn't actually fall in love until after they were married. We also know that Robert married Cora specifically for the Levinson fortune, like her family's fortune, and that Cora was kind of paraded upon around Europe by her mother Martha, who, by the way, like seeing a young Martha and a young Dowager go up against each other would be incredible. Like there's just crazy drama. This could kind of all lead up to the point where Robert has to go off to war and he meets a young Bates. And then we find out what on earth it was that Bates did for Lord Grantham that gained him all of this crazy loyalty and respect. I mean, it's Bates, like a young Bates who can walk. Look out, world. Which, for that matter, also means that we could actually get the like OG Mrs. Bates introduced in the series and figure out why on earth they hooked up in the first place. There's so much that could be explored in that era. It's ripe for another whole 6 seasons of a television series, and I want it. I want it terribly bad. So yeah, I realize this might be a controversial hot take. I realize that I might be the only one that cares, but I would love to know your thoughts. Do you think Downton Abbey could have or should have been a cinematic universe? And don't at me, I realize there's movies, and I realize that a prequel series is not necessarily the creation of a cinematic universe. And I also recognize I'm talking about like television series and not necessarily movies, but I mean like in the modern era with the Disney Plus and the way that all mixes in with everything else, you know what I mean. So put it in the comments. What do you think? What would you like to see from a Downton Abbey cinematic connected universe? Let's have some fun.